Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Today we are going to talk about a very essential topic in Islamic philosophy, which is the doctrine of necessitarianism and the particular doctrine of the necessity of the divine action. For the Islamic philosophers, divine action, the thing that the divine reality, the divine essence necessarily does, is necessary, such that it is impossible for God to not have done it. And why do the Islamic philosophers believe it? Here's a short syllogism for why the Islamic philosophers believe it. Premise one: the divine action is either essential to the divine essence or potential. Premise 2: that which is potential in one respect cannot be actualized in that respect by its own self. For example, if the divine essence is potential with respect to its action, then it is impossible for the divine action to be the cause, divine essence to be the cause of the divine action, because the essence itself would be potential with regards to its own action, and that which is potential in one respect cannot actualize its own self. Because if something can actualize its own self, then universe can come into existence on its own. There's no problem with that either. So obviously non-existence cannot come out of existence, and existence cannot come out of non-existence. So a potential cannot actualize its own self. If premise 3: if the divine action is potential, then God depends upon another for its actualization. That's fairly self-sufficient, since God cannot actualize it on its own. Now, premise 4: God does not depend upon another. It is impossible for God to depend upon another. God is absolutely self-sustaining and subsisting, and it is impossible for him to depend upon another. So the conclusion is that the divine action is not potential, and it is essential to the divine essence. And if it is essential to the divine essence, then it is a necessary concomitant of the divine essence, and the divine action therefore becomes a necessity in itself as well, because the divine essence itself is also necessity. So this is the argument that the Islamic philosophers present for the necessity of the divine action. Now many people ask that, oh, doesn't this violate his free will? So the answer to this is no, because let us just consider a scenario in which we ask the person that, oh, can God die, or can God cease to exist, or can God make a contradiction true? The answer would obviously be no. God cannot die, because God is ever living, God is eternal, right? It is impossible for the necessity existent to go into non-existence. God go into non-existence? No, that is impossible. Similarly, it is impossible for a purely actualized being that is eternal in its own self, that is essential and necessary in its own self, to have any accidental property. And going from a state of creation, from a state of non-creation to creation, is an accidental property. So it follows from this very simple reasoning that the action of God is necessary in its own self, and it is necessitated by his own essence, and it is a response of his will, which is identical to his essence. And this does not entail, this necessity of his action does not entail that it goes against his free will, because free will is to do things due to your own essence, as you want, in accordance with your own essence. And if that is the free will, then God has the best free will. This is the same view that is held by great necessitarian theists like Spinoza, like Avicenna, like Ibn Arabi, like Mulla, like Mulla Sadra, like Suhrawardi. And this is the view of the Islamic philosophers, simply put, on the necessity of the divine action. Thank you very much for watching this short video. If you like this, please share and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Jazakallah.